Hey guys, welcome back to another quick impressions video. A little bit late on this because I did beat this game last year, last decade. It's been a while since I beat the game, but better late than never to talk about Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle for the Nintendo Switch. A game that ever since it was announced, it piqued my curiosity. I'm a big fan of the XCOM. I shouldn't say the XCOM games because I only played the first one, but I was a pretty big fan of the first XCOM game, and this game kind of brought back some interest in me, and I'll probably go and check out XCOM 2 at one point. I know that game had a lot of performance issues. Which is why I didn't get it, when it first came out. But going back to Mario plus Rabbids, that the concept itself sounded a little bit weird, and I know a lot of people got upset. You have the type of hardcore Nintendo fans that will not accept, Mario or Nintendo characters being used in a crossover with other third-party characters, but in my, I consider myself a Nintendo fan, and I didn't have any problems with Nintendo or Ubisoft in this case trying out something different. I don't particularly dislike the Rabbid characters. I don't really have any games, Rabbid games in my collection except for one on the Nintendo Wii. But I don't have anything against those characters. Quite the opposite. I think they're kind of funny. So I didn't have any problems with the Rabbids being on a Mario game like some fans out there had that problem. So it wasn't very hard for me to pick up the game, or it wasn't very hard to put that aside. Once I finally was able to play this game, I do have to say I did enjoy it thoroughly, but not as much as I was hoping. You guys see, this game was released in 2017, and it surprisingly made it to a lot of top, like 5 lists or top games of 2017 lists. And 2017 was a very, very good year in gaming. A lot of heavy hitters, a lot of great titles were released in that year. And for people like ACG to pick this as his game of the year when he played so many cool games that year, hyped me up for playing this game. And I finally played it a couple of months ago, and I guess my expectations were set a little too high, but nevertheless it was a very enjoyable game and a very enjoyable concept, because it's something that we don't see very often. Mario characters holding a gun in their hand, and a strategy game overall, when it's well made, I think it's always worth checking out. So the story itself, it's a little bit crazy. I'm not gonna spoil anything. There's not a whole lot to spoil, but basically the reason why the Rabbids get mixed up with the Mario universe is there's a mix-up, gone wrong with virtual reality and a technology experiment, if you will, and the characters from both universes get combined into one, and it's up to you to restore the worlds by rescuing this Rabbid character called Spawny, which he has control of this kind of like virtual reality goggle that it's creating all these weird creatures and weird universes or worlds within the Mario or the Mushroom Kingdom itself. So that's basically the story of the game. You're after Spawny the whole time, and of course characters like Bowser Jr. come into the mix. They're using this Spawny character in their best interest or benefit, and it's up to you to put a stop on Bowser Jr. and Spawny and rescue him and bring peace and restore peace, basically. So the graphics are great, colorful graphics, 3D graphics on the Nintendo Switch. This game runs pretty well both on handheld mode and obviously on the TV. You have your typical Mushroom Kingdom setting, a lot of familiar places, but the places, the worlds, they have that touch of Rabbids craziness in them, because it's after all it's a mashup of the two. Soundtrack, very good soundtrack actually. a lot of great pieces. I did enjoy a lot of the soundtrack pieces in this game, and a lot of the classic tunes combined with a lot of new pieces. I think it made up for a very good soundtrack. But let's focus on the gameplay, which is what matters. The game is a strategy game similar to the XCOM games, where you have to pick different skills and attacks and move your character strategically throughout the maps. Whether you have to choose whether to take cover, and you have to take into account the spaces that your character moves. And obviously it's kind of like playing chess a little bit. You have to be very careful and plan ahead, and sometimes plan ahead 2 or 3 times based on the type of enemy. Now the game itself, I think the game was it was challenging. Maybe not for the first 2 worlds. The game has 4 worlds in total, but the 3rd and 4th world, if you're not careful, if you don't plan accordingly, the game can become hard, because there are some new enemy types that are introduced in those 2 worlds or two chapters that can create some problems. Like the first 2 worlds are more of a, I guess, I don't want to say tutorial, but they're definitely easy, and you can play kind of like, without paying too much attention, or you can just play quote unquote just for fun. And but in worlds 3 and 4, you have to start taking things seriously if you don't want to get beat up pretty badly. Now the game does have a quote unquote easy mode at the beginning of each stage. It gives you the option to increase your health at no penalty, from what I could understand. I used it a couple times, especially in the later stages, and I couldn't see any sort of penalties or anything like that. You still get a set amount of rewards at the end of each a level or a stage that you beat. You get a certain amount of points and coins that you can use to buy new weapons for your characters, or to upgrade weapons for your character, and then you use the skill points in order to upgrade your skills in this game. For me personally, one thing you need to know is that Mario has to always be in your party. You cannot take off Mario, which is fine, because he's a pretty good character to have anyway. And I believe another requirement of the game is that you must have a Rabbid character in your party, which again is not a problem. Once you start getting farther into the game, you have a pretty you have a lot of depth in terms of choosing your characters, and each one has their own abilities. For example, Mario is pretty good at being a balanced character, but he has a pretty good amount of health, and he has a pretty good jumping abilities, like being able to bounce off enemies. And he also has close weapons, like he has a hammer that you can use to deal a lot of damage if you're right next to an opponent. So it's pretty easy to just jump stomp someone and then land next to him and then use the hammer to deal a lot of damage. He also has a sliding, all the characters actually have a sliding attack, but the one that stood out for me is a Rabbid Peach, which I use her a lot. She was my healer, and or he, because I don't know, it's it's a rabbit with a wig, simulating being Princess Peach. But she, I was able to use her health, or maxed out her health components. You can heal party members that are within a certain range, and if you max out, you can use her abilities to your benefit, especially later on. But she also has a pretty cool ability where you can have multiple physical attacks or sliding attacks. So if you have a lot of enemies close to one another, you can I believe up to 4 times you can slide attack the enemies, and it's like a free attack, because when you do a physical attack, it doesn't count towards your attack quota, if you will. So you can slide attack an enemy, take cover, and then use your weapon to deal damage. Then the other 2 characters that I used a lot were Rabbid Luigi. He's pretty strong and has like a bazooka that deals a lot of damage. And then also regular Luigi, he's a sniper, so he was pretty helpful in those maps where you had to keep your distance and having an upgraded sniper weapon, it was very useful. I used the one that had ink, and once the ink attack is critical, you kind of blind the enemy, and that was pretty useful. And depending on the stage, I also used the Rabbid Mario character. He's kind of like a tank. He's very strong. He can deal a lot of damage in close range. So if you have a pretty good balance and combination of Mario with the Rabbid Mario and Luigi, you have that ability to attack from afar with Luigi, and then have a lot of close-up power with Rabbid Mario. Or if things were gonna get really bad, I would use Rabbid Peach in order to heal my party members. And I'll be completely honest, guys, after I set up that ring of characters that I felt comfortable with, which are the ones that I basically just described, I didn't really care using the other characters. You can play as Yoshi and Rabbid Yoshi, but I didn't really use those characters much. In fact, Rabbid Luigi didn't really get a whole lot of playtime towards the end anyway. So it was mostly Mario, Princess Peach Rabbid, and Rabbid Mario, and Luigi. Even regular Princess Peach, I didn't really use her a lot, but that was kind of like the core of my party, and I would adjust accordingly depending on the level. Now the game has a component where you can obviously upgrade your characters. Characters like Luigi and Mario, they have like a far side, kind of like similar to the XCOM, where when the enemy, when it's the enemy's turn to attack, and if they move, they can shoot or attack. So that was, in my opinion, invaluable to have upgraded. You can have both Mario and Luigi shoot multiple times while the enemies do that, and sometimes you're able to eliminate some enemies in the process. So it's a very strategic game, and what surprised me was the level design, because you can have a solid foundation, but your levels are what matters, which is something that was missing in other games from this genre that I played, that were not just not very good overall. And then you have another aspect of the game, which is you can also do exploration in between the stages, which that's something that I did not enjoy, and it hindered my experience a little bit. You get to explore the overworld, if you will, to find more coins, to find treasure chests, and there are a ton of unlockables in this game. But the unlockables are not very worthy, or not very fun to look after. Most of them are just collectibles, like museum pieces or audio tracks that you can later listen to in the options menu or something like that. Some of the treasures were useful. Some of them contain skill points. Those were my favorite ones to find. But you don't know until you open the chest which ones are skills points. Because if I was able to kind of like determine from the outside which ones had like just collectibles like songs or artwork, I would not even bother going after those. Because some of them require you to come back later in the game. After you get certain power-ups. It's kind of like a Metroidvania in that sense, where you unlock new powers, and then you have to come back later and solve certain puzzles in order to get to the treasure chests. And I didn't really enjoy that aspect of the game. And in fact, there were some puzzles that were required to advance between stages in the game, and I really hated those. There was one in the ice world where it was very similar to this Zelda puzzles, where you have to push stuff in the ice, and there's a fixed path, and they can get pretty challenging, surprisingly. I mean, I know the Mario games are typically created so that anyone can play them, young kids to adults. Some of these puzzles had me scratching my head for a while, and they were, in my opinion, they were hard to figure it out, especially the Ice World ones, and some of them that required color combinations and whatnot. Some of them were frustrated, and I wish I could just bypass these things in order to just play the regular strategy missions. Those were the fun things. That's where the fun is in this game. And the cool thing is that you can unlock challenges or challenge missions after you beat each world. So that adds a little bit of replay value, and of course you get more experience, which is very good. So The more challenges you beat, the more experience you get, and you can use that to your advantage and upgrade your skills for all the characters in the game. So you know, that's another thing that extends the replay value. And the cool thing is this game can be played locally via co-op. I didn't really try that, but it's an option there, and I believe there are stages that are specifically made for co-op play. Again, I did not get a time to delve into that, but that option is out there. So overall, this was a very fun game. I put over 30 hours. Admittedly, I did not fully 100% complete the game. I was able to beat the game, but not fully, I didn't complete all of the challenges. I think I completed all the challenges for the first and second world, but not for the third and the fourth. Like, the rewards were not as big. I was hoping they would give you more skill points to upgrade your skills, but they didn't do that. So I just focused on beating the story mode. And again, you know, combined, it took me, I want to say, between 25 hours and 30 hours. So a pretty meaty game, strategy game that it took everyone by surprise. It's definitely worthy checking this game out just because of the novelty of Mario, characters with weapons, and, you know, and the Rabbids and whatnot. The story, again, I was not a very big fan of the story, but the game itself, I think it's a pretty solid game and highly recommended if you have a Nintendo Switch. So that's it for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all later.